Hi, Vernon. Congratulations on 20 years of Sarani Sembang. This is indeed a milestone, and this success is a reflection of your passion, dedication, creativity, and tenacity. Happy to call you my friend. And let me try in the mother tongue of my grandmother to wish you well. Yureza Deus logo benzekubos tudo dia. God bless and lots of love.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the second episode of the second season of Clubhouse. And yes, Marcus just pointed out that we need to get into the other room. So this is wonderful. So we're all going to leave this preparation room and we're going to move into our room. Conversation to understand aphasia. I'm starting the room now. And here we are. Okay. Yes, and so here we are on Sarani Sembang, the second episode of our second season. And I've got two very good guests with me. Very happy to have them. One of them is somebody I first met on Clubhouse several weeks ago. What am I saying? I'm trying to be an octopus here. So that's what's going on. So Marcus, thanks for reminding me that we needed to be on that, on that other room. But this is an experiment. And here we have Marcus, whom I met on Clubhouse, and Evelyn. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Thanks for coming on. So how are you, Marcus and Evelyn? Marcus, over to you.
I'm good. Thanks for for initiating this. It's gonna be fun. Looking forward to the rest of the conversation.
Thanks, Vernon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We were in preparation for this. We had another room and we were there. And then I launched the broadcast without realizing that I hadn't opened up the actual room on Clubhouse. So, and we have three people on Clubhouse watching us now: Keith, Jean, and Wen. Right. So the three of you on Clubhouse, wonderful. And we've also got 5 people on YouTube and Facebook watching us. So that's wonderful. Yeah. Okay, so let me kind of like set up the premise of what's going on right here. Okay, we are here on the second episode of the second season of Sarani Sembang, and Sarani Sembang started out 20 years ago, as you saw the actual little message of congratulations early on from Dr. Rebecca Santamaria, who is a personal friend of mine, as a wonderful supporter of my Sarani Sembang initiative, wishing us a happy 20th anniversary. That message was actually created last year for the first season of Sarani Sembang. And I thought I'd just kind of like reuse it for this to kick off the show. And so here we are on Sarani Sembang, where we have authentic chit-chat about identity and heritage. And I think it's really important to talk about these things because a lot of us Sarani people are very confused with regards to our identity and our heritage. So having conversations and sharing stories help us to, in a sense, get a better grip on our sense of identity. And the reason why I had Marcus and Evelyn join me today is because they work in the area of treatments for aphasia. Okay, and aphasia is, as I mentioned in the intro to the room, aphasia is a condition that is brought on by an injury to the brain, which then affects speech and the understanding of speech and language. And perhaps maybe what I'd like to do is get Evelyn to first of all speak about aphasia, because I feel aphasia, because it's related to language and communication, it is, in a sense, about assertion of identity as well. So, Evelyn, I'm done speaking. Over to you.
Thanks, Vernon. First of all, thank you so much for having us and initiating this conversation. As you know, I told you earlier, we love to talk about aphasia because not enough people know about it and how profound the impact, of someone losing the ability to think in words, and the language that you possess previously, when it's lost to you, it has such a huge impact on a person's identity, and essentially communication is what makes us human, right? So as you rightly pointed out, aphasia happens when, the technical part of things is when the brain, the language lobes of the brain, typically on the left hemisphere, is injured. And most commonly, it's brought on by a stroke, but it can also be due to a traumatic brain injury. It can be due to a brain tumor. It can be due to brain infections and progressive neural diseases. So that brings about aphasia. We often get this question, sometimes from caregivers or even just members of the public when we do outreach. Why have I not heard of this? And our response to them is, one, the person who has aphasia has a communication impairment, and it's really hard for them to advocate for themselves, right? So it is the responsibility. I think it's a moral responsibility for volunteers, for family members, for anyone who's actually working with a person with aphasia to really advocate and tell more people about this condition, just so that, the world understands and the larger community knows that, hey, there is this condition, and all, what we can do as members of the public is to be more patient, is to be kinder. Yeah. So
Okay.
that's my take, on aphasia. I think I kind of, talk quite a bit.
No, not at all. I think it's really important for us to get a good picture of what it is about. And you founded Aphasia Singapore. So this is kind of like a pan causeway, trans causeway, cross causeway, kind of like a collaboration happening here.
It's great. I love it.
Me too. And thanks to Marcus, who connected us together, because Marcus came into a room of mine a couple of weeks ago. Is that correct, Marcus? And how did that happen? Perhaps you can share so that people who are listening to us can understand the potential that Clubhouse as a facility and online communication in this pandemic can connect us in wonderful ways. Marcus, over to you.
So I can't remember the very first time we met in a room, but it could well have been in one of the language rooms. I think there was this language conference thing on Clubhouse. It might have been that. Were you on that?
Yes. It was about language, because if I'm not mistaken, I think you did talk about your Fuchao and which one is it? Hakka? Is it Hakka and Fuchao?
Okay.
Right?
If I'm not wrong, there was this speaker.
Lingua cultura.
Lingua
that?
cultura. That one. And then someone was talking about identity and language. Like, she's a heritage-wise from, she's Chinese, and then she's in Canada, so she was sharing her experience as I think someone who's a minority over there and things like that. Then
right,
I chimed in and I related to her, albeit in a different way, kind of opposite, because being in Singapore, we, as the ethnic Chinese, we are the majority. But what's similar to what she shared was also she was Teochew, so my dad is Teochew, my mom is Fuchao. Right. Then from there, I think we saw each other in more and more rooms, or because we started to follow each other, and then when you follow each other, you see each other's appearances on Clubhouse in the hallway, in the main newsfeed kind of thing on Clubhouse. Then we got more connected, and then I also shared with Vernon how I had been learning some Kristang, which is or otherwise known as Papia Kristang, or this Creole, this language that came about from around 500 years ago, since
when the Portuguese first arrived.
So it came about since that time, and then we got into some very nice conversations about these matters.
And I discovered that you were involved in aphasia advocacy, and you told me about Aphasia Singapore. And I said to you that I had an experience with aphasia, in that my late mother, who had a stroke, suffered from aphasia. And the thing that struck me about aphasia is the fact that once you have it, you are unable to communicate, and you are trapped inside your body, because often enough, you actually understand what people are saying to you, but you cannot actually respond, because somehow the brain is not connecting to the muscles. Would this be correct, Evelyn or Marcus? Evelyn?
Yeah, so that is one form of aphasia. When we talk about aphasia, when we talk about aphasia, right, there can be broadly two types. We can have somebody who has expressive aphasia, and I believe that might be what your late mother had, because if you said she understood what was being said but had difficulty expressing herself. So sometimes we call that broker's aphasia. That's one term. And then the other type of aphasia would be receptive aphasia, where it's Wernicke's aphasia. The person has difficulty with auditory processing. And the breakdown can be at the level of just phonemes. When what they hear, the sound is really distorted.
Wow.
Which makes it difficult for them to comprehend. I just want to say it's so tough for a lot of our members who have the latter kind of aphasia, meaning the receptive aphasia, because it's very invisible. Sometimes their speech appears quite fluent. So people don't know that they have a comprehension, an auditory comprehension challenge, impairment.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens also in a group conversation, right? Because they seem so well, very very often it's missed out until they reply to a question, and then you realize that the responses are a little bit off. They don't really get a lot of slack. Yeah, the ones who have the expressive aphasia, because it's manifested, right? You kind of see. I always say, aphasia is like an iceberg, right? And then you see the tip of the iceberg, which is really the speech part. But really, there's so many layers to it, because when we look at language, in all modalities of language, there is the expressive part, which is the speech, and then there's also the spelling and writing. So that includes grammar as well. And then there's the receptive bit, which is the auditory comprehension, but also the reading. Yes. And in each of these modalities, right, there can be layers of breakdown, and that's why our job. I'm a practicing speech and language therapist. It's such an interesting job, because we are like detectives, right?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, we are trying to find out where is the breakdown.
Yes.
Where is the breakdown, and we're trying to treat it. So the way we treat is so one way is, if you have an impairment in this area, I'm going to pump you in this area. I'm going to give you lots of drills in this area, and get you up to speed. Right, but first I must know where exactly the problem is.
Mm-hmm. Yep, got it.
Yeah. So that's the clinical side of things. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, there's also global aphasia. You might see this term being bandied around in the hospitals. Sometimes the doctors write that when they think they cannot communicate with the person. May or may not be true, but global aphasia just refers to somebody who has both receptive and expressive aphasia. Yeah, so it's global. Yeah, but typically for us, SLPs, like speech language pathologists, when we say global, it's very, very severe kind of impairment on both sides. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I just want to say that okay, so just to reset the room and people who've joined us, especially for those on Clubhouse, if you have any questions or want to contribute to the conversation, we can't allow people on stage at the moment because I haven't worked out how to do a simulcast with having your voices from the audience onto our simulcast to YouTube and Facebook. So I'm actually not going to bring people up on stage, but I do want to have you interacting with us. And you can do this by going to a bit.ly link for YouTube, where you can actually type in your questions. So Keith and Della, who are with us in Clubhouse, you can go to bit.ly/SS, which is for Sarani Sembang, /SS-aphasia, APHASIA. And you can actually type in anything that you want there, and we will actually read out your questions and answer it if you like. You can also tell us if the sound is coming across well, because 3 of us are actually on headsets to StreamYard, and so none of us are actually listening to the Clubhouse audio. So if the Clubhouse audio is low, please let us know. Keith especially. Keith is a good friend, so I'm sure he'll chime in. Okay, so I just want to get back to aphasia and Marcus and Evelyn. So Marcus and I actually connected on Clubhouse in a lingua and cultural conference, and I found out that he was interested in Kodra Kristang, the revival initiative in Singapore, done by Kevin Martins Wong, spearheaded by Kevin Martins Wong, a linguistic student. I think he's a scholar now. And the thing is, Marcus himself is not Sarani, but he was interested in a Sarani heritage language, which actually would be of no use to him. But he actually he actually took it up. And so I was interested in why he was doing it, and so that's how we talked about his interest in Kodra Kristang and in Kristang. But Marcus, I have a surprise in that to tell you that I actually know and might have met your brother-in-law's mother,
Oh,
Leslie Ginting. So Serani people are all connected in some way or other. I don't know whether Leslie is watching, but if she is, I don't know whether she remembers meeting me when we were in secondary school 5,000 years ago. So yeah, I see Evelyn kind of like screaming in silence at the ridiculous.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love it. Yeah.
I just sent her the link so she can watch the live stream if she.
Okay. So yeah. So and the reason why I came around to finding out that I know the Serani woman whom you had mentioned in our conversations is because I actually wanted a speech therapist based in Perth to join us, and apparently she knows you, Marcus. Alessandra Shanmugam.
Yeah.
Alessandra Shanmugam, who is related to Leslie.
Okay, yes, we met.
Right. Yeah. So I actually connected with Alessandra's mother, who's a very good friend of mine, and I said, "Hey, I want your daughter to join us this evening." Yeah, it was a very last minute thing because I suddenly remembered, like, why don't I ask Alessandra to join us? Because I know she's a speech therapist, and then when she checks out the details of the event, she finds out it's you, and that's how I found out. So yeah. So yeah, Seranis, I tell you, small world. We're all connected.
Yeah. And now Evelyn is part of this.
And now Evelyn has been lured into our Serani web.
It's fantastic. I mean, like, talk about 6 degrees of separation. This is like what, 2 degrees, 3 degrees of separation.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And what's really interesting is that it's all brought us together because of a common interest, the common ground being language communication, right?
Yeah.
It started with language and communication with me and Marcus, and then he mentions aphasia, so immediately we drag you in. And
great, yeah.
And you had some questions about Serani Sembang earlier on. Maybe you'd like to ask me, and the people who you have brought into this room to listen to this can also get some insights into what's going on here.
Yeah, I was asking Vernon earlier on, to give me a run through, like, what exactly is Serani Sembang, and I also had questions about your mom, your late mom, Yeah, so maybe Serani Sembang first, and then I'll ask a few questions. I'm really curious about, if you knew your mom had aphasia at that point of time.
Okay.
Yeah. So one thing at a time. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, Serani Sembang started 20 years ago. It was a family website. It started out as the Woodville family website, family tree website. Okay, just the Woodvilles. I'm a Woodville descendant, and it was started by Vincent Michael Woodville, who is resident now in Sydney, and he has created an amazing book on the Woodville family tree that goes back, all the way to France and blah blah blah. And I'm a descendant, and what happened was the family tree basically grew to include a lot of descendants of Woodvilles, but who did not have the family name, like me. And eventually, the non-Woodville, Woodville descendants without the Woodville family name outnumbered the Woodville descendants with the Woodville family name. So it seemed like a little bit odd to call it the Woodville family tree, And so I started Serani Sembang because I was interested in computer-mediated communications, and Serani Sembang would be for anybody, regardless of what your family name was. As long as you identify as Serani, you were welcome. And that was 20 years ago. In the last 5 to 10 years, because of Facebook, the family tree website basically, in a sense, lost a following because people started their own little family tree sites through Facebook because it's so easy to set up. And so I decided I'm gonna, evolve Serani Sembang to be about identity and heritage because that's what I was interested in. And the reason why Evelyn and Marcus are now with me, right? Two very strong advocates and participants in the treatment of aphasia is because the thought was communication and language is how we assert our identity Okay. And therefore, if you lose your sense of communication or ability to understand, it's more difficult to assert your identity. And so that's why I decided to ask Evelyn and Marcus to come along and tell us, because the aphasia story is something that is personal to me. So that's why Sarani Sembang is having you, and that's the background. So next question.
Yeah, so the next question, thank you for that. And the next question I had was, if you knew at that point of time that your mom had aphasia, did you know the term for it?
Okay.
Because that's one of the things that, we grapple with. Sometimes caregivers, and right now with Aphasia SG, with Aphasia Singapore, what happens is we are, building this community of people, persons with aphasia, and caregivers who are caring for persons with aphasia. So that person could have been diagnosed from years ago, right? And anyone's welcome, right? We're not a treatment center. We are a community. And we hear this sometimes from caregivers. I did not know, like my husband not speaking is called aphasia. I didn't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yes. So my mom had a very serious stroke in 2009. Okay. And of course, it was the first time I was confronted with somebody so close having what was really a serious stroke. And she had a craniectomy, okay, the right side of her brain. Craniectomy meaning the brain was swelling after a stroke, just to let listeners know. And so they had to remove part of a skull so that the swelling of the brain would not impact on the other side, in order to save as much of the brain as possible from injury. The swelling, of course, was serious in my mom. And so she became 100% dependent and needed full 100% care. And one of the things so I threw myself into actually looking at her post-treatment care, post-stroke care. And because I'm interested in communication, I rose to the challenge of figuring out how to get her to, in a sense, recover from the loss of her ability to speak. I knew that the brain injury basically was about how the brain neurons or the neural pathways from brain to muscle, had been destroyed. And therefore, she had no control over her muscles, and that had to be redeveloped. Neural pathways had to be recreated. And it could only be done through intensive therapy. And all this I knew once I got from the doctor what her diagnosis was. And then, of course, Mr. Google helped me along the way. So did I know about aphasia? I heard him mention it. I went and Googled it. And then, I'm one of those squirrels who very happily will go and look for all kinds of things, on the internet. And I just downloaded a lot of stuff. So, so that's the story of how I found out about aphasia and how I appreciate what you guys are doing, because I think it's all about that sense of dignity and, ability to tell the world how you feel, what you need, and and if you're in pain or not. And that was what bothered me about the fact that my mother had aphasia. So Evelyn, that's my story lah. That I really wanted her to tell us, what she needed, and if anything was working right for her.
Yeah, I think this is a good segue for Marcus to share. I mean, so for me, I do this is my day job. But I think, somebody like Marcus and a lot of our other volunteers, they're amazing because they come in really not knowing so much about aphasia. And we do conduct training, we teach our volunteers, the dedicated ones, about, strategies and all that. But to throw themselves into this whole advocacy work, I think it's really amazing. And I want Marcus to be able to share his take on how he's found, like the best strategies, or what kind of strategies work for him. And perhaps also the journey of, I think, Marcus, you have volunteered for 2 years, right? About 2 years. Yeah.
Wow.
So I think maybe you can share, coming from the perspective of an advocate volunteer. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Wait, just a minute. Evelyn, when did you start Aphasia Singapore?
Actually, it's about 2 years lah.
Okay.
Officially registered about 2 years. We started as a ground up. So initially, I think we started November 2018, but we were not registered. It was just like a group. It was just bunch of
people wanting to
a bunch of
help
speech
out.
therapists,
Yeah,
very very
yeah.
passionate
Fantastic.
about helping our patients. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Okay.
then yes, and then people then we started to recruit, and we have volunteers like Marcus coming on board.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, Marcus, over to you.
Sure.
Your story.
Yeah. So Vernon, you were sharing about how when your mom came down with a stroke, and then you had to search up, and the internet helped you, and doctors or a doctor told you that, oh, this is aphasia.
Yep.
Then I think one important thing, which is what if Evelyn was asking about, like, oh, how did you know about aphasia? Did you know the word? So this is one of the two main missions of Aphasia SG, right? About building awareness, spreading awareness, that more people would know, like, oh, this thing exists. And then further from there, we want people to know not just specifically because someone might have aphasia, that we need to be kinder. Okay, but then, so for me, how I came into this is because I studied linguistics in university, and then I was coming to the end of my third of 4 years of study. Then at that point, I was considering, like, okay, once I'm done with another year, I got to start working. What do I want to do? Do I want to continue studies and do something like speech therapy, which I had heard about, but then I was only more strongly considering when I was in my second semester of my third year. Then I searched online, and then I found 3 places to volunteer at. One of that is at that point, it wasn't called Aphasia SG just yet. It was still Chit Chat Cafe, because it was, at that point, it was once a month, every third Saturday of the month pop up. Yeah. So there's a funny story. Should I share that?
No. Yeah, sure, go ahead. I don't know what's your story.
Okay,
no,
just before you start the story, I just want to say that I love the name Chit Chat Cafe, because because it basically says, let's have a conversation, and that's wonderful. Yeah. Simple. Yeah. Wonderful.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. I remember. I actually remember how I came up with that name. It was in the bathroom. I just remember. I was like,
best ideas.
You know what? Yeah, the best ideas come out in the bathroom. And I just thought, that's it, right? I mean, when you call it therapy, you scare the people away.
Yes.
Right. I mean,
right,
and some of and it's true, because somebody who suffers a brain injury go through so much rehab, so much therapy, that sometimes the moment they hear the word therapy, there's a visceral reaction to it, like the muscle tenses up, right? So just call it chit chat, just have fun. And that's the whole idea. Therapy is, yes, it's targeted, and we're targeting impairment, but at the end of the day, we set up the whole Chit Chat Cafe, and even right now Chit Chat online with kind of like a group therapy, in mind. So the whole idea of having a safe space, and it's just allowing this person to have opportunities to communicate when they otherwise would not have, or would not open up. And many of our members are already not going for active therapy. So this is good. This is good practice ground for them. And we remind them, like, hey, just come and have fun, and like have a cup of coffee next to you. I mean, now it's obviously over Zoom, so so chit chat,
Wonderful, lovely. And you're going to share that story that might embarrass somebody out there?
I don't know.
Oh no. It not actually, no. I don't think it embarrasses anyone. Okay, but if you've heard it, so when I first came across Chit Chat Cafe, I came across it while Googling, and then I saw on Facebook that, recently there was some event. And then the next one that was going to come up was, I think, June 2019. Because I think when I was searching online, it was maybe late May or something. So when I turned up, I was a bit lost. Just like one person there, and then people are busy, like preparing, setting up for the start of the event on a Saturday morning, right? Then one of the core team members approached me, and she was like, I can't mimic her or anything. I can't remember what she said also, but she was seemingly very cautious, very professional in how she spoke with me. Then when I said, like, oh, okay, I'm a first time here, I'm a volunteer or something like that, right? Then she's like, oh, like, che. So because at that point she revealed that she thought I was someone who might have had aphasia. And so she, like, rightly so, she wanted to be as clear as she could, and try to, in her being a speech therapist, which professionally, being like she would like, okay, try and figure out like, okay, how severe, if I had aphasia, how severe might it have been? Then like, yeah. So that was a bit of a funny thing. Like then like, hey, Che, then she changed her speaking style.
But that's sweet, lah, right? Because she was trying to be sure that she was accommodating you in the right way, in the best way possible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is a good segue to bring in the point that aphasia really can happen to anyone, right? And I believe what happened with Marcus, there's a backstory to this as well. One of our youngest participants. Okay, so first of all, Chit Chat Cafe is the, you can say, you know, like before Aphasia SG, we had Chit Chat Cafe. We still have it as a program under Aphasia SG, but before we registered, the ground up group was just called Chit Chat Cafe because that was what we did. Every month we popped up as a cafe for persons with aphasia and the caregivers, right? So the backstory to Marcus's story is the youngest person to actually walk through our door with aphasia was only 26 when she got her stroke, right? And she came with a friend, sat down at the table, and nobody knew that she had aphasia. It was maybe halfway through that, I think finally her friend or she spoke. Then everybody went like, oh, so you have difficulty talking. And then, it dawned on all of us. And of course, when we did the debrief, we're like, we cannot assume that when a young person walks through our door, they are a volunteer because everybody thought she was a volunteer.
Right. Yeah.
And because of that, we changed certain systems. And obviously, whoever's manning the front desk became a lot more cautious, not to jump to conclusions or make the assumption that, hey, a young person is obviously just a volunteer. Yeah, and it was because of that one participant. We changed our name tagging system as well. We used to just write everyone's names on labels, like black ink. After that, we had color differentiation. Okay, volunteers in a different color, maybe red. And then if you're a participant, black. If you're a caregiver, blue. Just so that we can differentiate the roles. It's not to pigeonhole the person, but obviously if she might have felt left out. I mean, if she sat through, because we thought if the person in her group thought she's a volunteer, right? Obviously, would be expecting her to facilitate the conversation, but she was keeping quiet. But it was because she's a patient, and nobody knew she was 26.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
It's it's quite it's wonderful to hear how something happens and you respond to it in the best way possible to move things forward. And the use of colors on the name tags is one method where you learned, you discovered something, you had a lesson, and you moved forward with that lesson. Beautiful, And the reason actually one of the reasons why I was interested in having both you, Evelyn and Marcus, in this program is also because I'm I'm a communication person. I really enjoy figuring out what people really mean when they mean something, and working with my mom when she had aphasia was rather interesting because I had to figure out how to work with her and to come up with protocols, that would actually take into consideration her own personal difficulties. Okay, like for instance, because she had such a serious craniectomy, right? How she shook her head was very uncertain. So we couldn't just ask her to nod yes or shake her head, say no. It was ridiculous. It just wouldn't work because the way she could move her head was very limited. So it had to be something else. So it was always about, in a sense, being person-centric or patient-centric, right? And it made me think about communication between people. How often do we make it central to the person we are communicating with, rather than actually, having certain assumptions about what they mean, through what they're saying, and then those assumptions leading to mistakes that lead to misunderstanding. So like yesterday on Clubhouse, I actually came across a room that was talking about respect and disrespect, and the room was discussing what do you do when somebody disrespects you. I mean, a very simple premise. Okay, so people are coming on board and sharing. Okay, And one of the biggest takeaways from that is, if somebody disrespects you or you feel disrespected, ask a question to clarify, because you might be making assumptions. So somebody with aphasia, right, would be hindered.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In clarifying communication and getting something across and stuff like that. And so it's really incumbent upon the listener or the the person who does not have aphasia to really try harder.
It's so true. So what we advocate, right, in our community is this approach called supported conversations, meaning it is not just the onus of one person to communicate, right? It's always a dialogue. It's always a conversation, right? Why do we expect the person with the brain injury to do better and perform when really it should be the responsibility of everyone, talking to this person? Shouldn't everybody partake, a little bit of this responsibility? So I'll give you an example. Let's say, I'm having a conversation with you and I'm the brain injured person. So it's hard for me to express myself. So shouldn't you, Vernon, be the one, supporting in terms of perhaps using more gestures, using, a lot of expressive facial expressions? Should I not be able to understand you? Shouldn't you be the one taking out pen and paper to keyword, right? I mean, it's a two-way street, right? But there's always this, I don't know, like reliance on, sometimes I think it takes effort on our part to convince maybe the family members and all to really take on some of these strategies as well. Because the idea is, no, I just want this person to be able to understand and to improve until they're back to 100%. Yeah. But communication is really more than just words. I mean,
Absolutely.
That's what we stress. Yeah, it's more than just words. Right, so we always like to give this analogy of aphasia is almost like, say you are traveling and you don't speak the language in a certain country, right? So I use Russian because I don't understand a word of Russian. So imagine now I'm traveling in Moscow, I walk into a Russian cafe, I want to order food, but the menu is in Russian, the server speaking to me in Russian, I have no way of responding in Russian, he doesn't understand English, then how? But I'm still me, right?
Yeah. That's really interesting because, I had a recent conversation when I said that the best holidays for me personally, right, is going to a place where nobody speaks English, because then life becomes an adventure. But for somebody with aphasia, that adventure can be so tiresome, right?
Because it's not an adventure, it's a daily existence.
Exactly.
It's a daily existence.
Yeah, you're right.
So because when we use this example, sometimes people shoot back and say, oh, but it's fun. I love it when I travel. Yeah, sure. I mean, if you're going on a 2-week holiday, it's fun. Imagine, losing the language that you knew, that you grew up with, and not be able to use it and have all these thoughts in your head and have no means to express it. How frustrating that must be.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and we feel frustrated. I mean, I remember feeling frustrated when I was in a rural part of Thailand trying to order pad thai. Nobody understood me. There wasn't any pictures on the menu. And then later I found out much later on, I think, when I gestured to some food and there's no pad thai on the menu. Whoops. But I remember feeling very frustrated because I was hangry. I was so hungry and angry.
Oh, I feel you. Hangry is not a good place to be. Yeah. So like, with regards to walking into an environment where nobody understands you. I mean, Marcus moving into an environment where Kristang was being spoken. And I refer to Kristang because we're on Sarani Sembang and various people who might be listening will identify with Kristang. So you as somebody who comes from a different language background walks into the Kristang room. What was and also because you studied linguistics and then went into speech therapy, right? Was speech therapy? No, speech therapy is not part of your training.
Oh no.
Okay, I see. So you're a volunteer in aphasia. Okay.
Yep.
So as a linguist coming into this environment, what is your frame of mind in terms of figuring out how to assert your presence? Assert your identity or find out from other people stuff, to be able to work on your curiosity. What are the tools that you use? Maybe you can share with us.
Right. Okay. So, it was really quite Okay, while obviously the pandemic hasn't been good for so many of us all around the world in many aspects of our lives, there have been some little bits of good out of it, like how when we have gone online, that has opened up opportunities for us, like many of us, to connect with people all around the world. A lot of people like say, oh, pivot and things like that, right? So that was why Kodra Kristang started to have the classes online. And so being online, it opened up the opportunity for people from all around the world to join in. Yeah, so language enthusiasts who, just like me, in a way, also had no reason to learn Kristang. Like, why would you learn Kristang? what link do you have in your heritage to this language that's spoken by just 1,000 or so people in Malacca and a few hundred or so in Singapore, right? Like, for me, then that makes me like, oh, okay, I have a bit of a link. My brother-in-law, side of the family, things like that. So anyway, regarding learning the language in the classes, that was like a 10-week long thing.
And it was
weekly?
Mainly
once
a week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Every Saturday for 10 weeks, except when it was Chinese New Year, right? So the classes were conducted in English, and then there were times where like a breakout room, and then use Kristang and then say these practice the dialogue and things like that. So Kristang, being a Creole or language that is that has its words mainly coming from Portuguese, and the language structure, like the grammar, mainly from Malay, it didn't feel like so 100% foreign to me, because I had learned some Spanish already, and in the past I learned a bit of Indonesian as well, which is Indonesian and Malay, and I had exposure, not like intentional learning of Malay, so like, I could make some connections, and okay, that's something that's interesting. But of course, there were still many new things to learn. Yeah, so it was definitely fun seeing people from around the world getting exposed to this language, this culture, the people who are involved. Yeah.
Right. So it wasn't entirely alien to you because of your family link, and so that particular culture or manner of maybe seeing the universe wasn't that alien, correct? Because you have a brother-in-law who is Sarani. Yeah, interesting. And Evelyn, with regards to your area of expertise, which is in speech therapy, right?
Yeah.
What happens when you are dealing with people of different language skills?
Yeah.
Like, let's say if you're working with somebody who maybe doesn't speak English or doesn't even speak Chinese, what happens then?
That's a really good question, right? Yeah, it's an excellent question. So I must say, like when we talk about speech therapy, it's such a broad field. There's so many different disciplines that one can venture into, and aphasia is just one area. But I think, to be a good aphasia therapist, it is important to be able to speak the language of the person, simply because you are it's actually really intimate, and like you mentioned earlier, you had to find your way to communicate with your mom. So for me, I'm fortunate because of my background. I speak not just English and Mandarin, I also speak Hokkien and Cantonese proficiently. My mom's Cantonese, my dad's Hokkien. So I've always felt like that gave me an edge working in a hospital, being able to communicate very well with my senior patients who speak the language. Unfortunately, I can't do Hakka, I can't do Hainanese. Those are lost on me, but I can manage a bit of like Teochew, which works, right? When I'm doing therapy. If the therapist is monolingual, then I will say treat only the patients who speak English. If you want to treat, sure, I mean, sometimes you really have no choice, then get a translator. That's the next best. Yeah. And personally, I've encountered this type of situation. I have had I remember seeing this patient from, I think, Bangladesh before. I think she came and she needed help, but she was just here for a very short-term stay. So what I left the family with was really a whole gamut of strategies. and asking them to find someone back home who can work with them on communication.
Yeah.
Right? Because some therapists don't do this acquired communication disorders bit. So I gave them whatever strategies I could, to the family. There was a sister-in-law who could speak quite fluent English, so she was our translator. But we also see sometimes migrant workers who come in with industrial injuries.
Right.
That's really very tough because they...
industrial injuries, as in injuries that they sustain in a workplace. Is that correct?
It happens,
So therefore, these would be migrant workers or workers.
It happens, And I have seen before, sometimes because of insurance issues, right? They don't get as much rehab as they should.
Yeah.
Right. And then they get sent home, or they get sent back to their workplaces, and who knows what the employers do with them. Yeah. And in those cases, sometimes we really have to get translators if we don't speak the language. So what I'm saying is, let's say person A's proficiency in English is like a 3 out of 10, and here I am trying to treat him using English and having no ability to access his other 7 out of 10, right? Which could be, I don't even know what language in India, right? I mean, it could be so many languages. Then I can only treat this part. I can't do anything more than that. It's very basic, right? So it could be not going beyond just like the simple greetings and functional needs, like I need water. I want to go toilet. So really simple things like that. But really, there could be so much more.
Right.
Right. I cannot access because I can't speak his language. Yeah.
So that, it brings to mind situations of even like in everyday life with people who are abled. Not being able to access exactly what you mean. Right, is already one thing. It's already a challenge. When you're speaking with somebody who speaks your language, but maybe comes from a different cultural perspective. It's kind of like bordering on when we misunderstand each other, right? So it's all about actually taking a step back and trying to be kinder and more compassionate and as I mentioned before, asking questions, because that idea of disrespect, right, can also be imagined rather than real. For instance, Marcus talking about how when he turned up at Aphasia at Chit Chat Cafe, and somebody spoke to him in a manner that assumed that he had aphasia. If you were of less generous heart, you could have been offended because somebody's assuming, that you have a disability. So I find it really interesting, this whole idea of like what you mentioned just now, acquired communication disorder.
And aphasia is just one of it. There's others. But aphasia, I feel, and research has shown that aphasia has the most profound impact on the person, and not just the person who suffers it, but the people around him and her. Right? Because obviously communication is not just that person, right? It affects the person's identity, self-esteem. But beyond that, I think the ability to communicate and convey the feelings, the thoughts. And how about important conversations? I mean, we're talking about the will, about, whether they want to sell a house. All these things are really abstract, concrete things you can gestures. How are you gonna have conversations about all this? I mean, and that's why I think our job as a speech therapist and even volunteers, advocate, is really important for us to give the person with aphasia this safe space time to really just express themselves and talk.
Wow. You're so right. I mean, like that level of compassion and kindness and consideration that one has to kind of find within oneself to be able to work in this area. I take my hats off to you. I mean, like,
not just me. I think a lot of us in the field of rehab therapy, I think there has to be a certain innate patience, I think. If we
Yeah,
are
yeah.
impatient, I think we can be impatient with ourselves, but not with the people we're working with, because we have to understand that they are suffering a medical condition or brain injury. It's not their fault, and they can't help it if the processing speed is just like not what it used to be.
Yeah.
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 Actually, just
Mhm.
go
Carry on.
ahead.
No, carry on.
Earlier on, you mentioned this thing about asking questions, right? And it reminded me of another Clubhouse talk that we did last week about incidents that happen. Marcus, do you want to share? Because we did this outreach event in last month, Aphasia
Yeah, on
Awareness Month.
19th June. Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier, if you feel like somebody's disrespectful to you, ask questions. And one of the scenes, and it's based on a real anecdote from one of our
Right.
members. Yeah, Marcus, you want to share? It's the one that happened on the MRT.
Okay. So the story goes, this is what I heard from you, right? So
Yeah.
this person accidentally, while in his motorized wheelchair, reversed and hit someone, whether it's on the foot or simply hit someone. Then the person responded negatively and said like, oh, what? How could why do you hit me? And we couldn't even apologize. But this person couldn't. He or she had at least some sort of expressive aphasia.
Right.
So he felt so bad that and I felt so dejected, demoralized.
The person who was unable to apologize.
Yeah. So the person in the wheelchair, the person in the motorized wheelchair had a brain block basically and couldn't say sorry fast enough. Wanted to, if you had given him an additional 5 seconds, he would have said it. Right. But the person whom he hit, in his reversal of the motorized wheelchair, basically jumped to conclusions and just went like, why are you so rude? You hit me and you didn't even say sorry, right? And when he related the story to us, he was really upset. Like he was close to tears. He felt bad, but more so he felt really hurt that somebody had assumed that he was just this rude dude on the train, right? Yeah. When really he had the word sorry in his head, but just couldn't say it fast enough. Yeah.
Yeah, it does something to your sense of self when you are misunderstood. It does. I mean, it's traumatic, when you're misunderstood. And it's thanks for sharing that story, because it really kind of like brings to mind a lot of memories of how when I was dealing with my mom, and I was fully aware, and being a communication consultant myself, having worked in the area of communications, and also being a trained actor, where we have to communicate sometimes. Not just through our voice, but in expressing ourselves on stage, kind of thing. So like because communication is performative, if that makes sense, communication is performative, and it's not that it's false. It's just that when you want to be clear, you really have to assert a particular position or stance or gesture or whatever. So there is a level of performativity, and this whole idea of the performativity of yourself, is hindered when somebody has aphasia, and then basically you kind of like fade into the background, and you don't want to communicate or express, and you become nothing. And that and so that story about the guy in the motorized wheelchair feeling so bad, basically he was dismissed or discounted or not just misunderstood, but completely all that. So that sense of identity is really given one big shake, right? Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. And picking up on that point you just said, right, like this sense of self and it's diminished. The thing that we want to do at Aphasia Singapore, we want to prevent or minimize, alleviate social isolation, and this sense of like, hey, I can't do this, I cannot talk, so I'm not gonna do it. We're like, no, do it. All the more you must do it, because what's going to happen is if they dismiss themselves or they think I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
All right. We have another scenario in our Choose Your Own Adventure outreach game, and that one is of this person picking up the phone and has auditory processing issue, couldn't really understand the other person on the other party, asked a family member for help, and because the sister was feeling quite stressed from work, right, picked up the phone and realized it was one of those bank calls and said, hey, you just have to do all these things yourself. You can't be like asking me to help you every single time, right?
Oh.
And person with aphasia feels so bad about the phone call, disturbing her family member, that she decided that, I'm just not going to pick up any more calls on my phone. Forget it. Yeah. right? Because this is what happens.
Yeah.
They just decide, they make certain decisions about communication. I'm just not going to. I'm just not, right?
Yeah, because
And
expressing even displeasure so that somebody knows this is something I'm not happy with is so difficult for them to do. And if we don't get it, they will be always completely we will make them unhappy. You know what I'm saying? Okay, just a minute. I want to do a reset because I've got Suhail on Clubhouse who raised his hand to speak. But we have a problem here, Suhail, because I'm doing a simulcast on YouTube and FB, right? We are not having people on stage. However, if you wish to, you can go to the link. This link is bit.ly. It's a bit.ly link /SS, which is Sarani Sembang, SS -aphasia, and you can actually send us your question there. Because we are unable to actually bring the speech or anything that anybody says on Clubhouse into the YouTube and Facebook page yet. Okay, so I'm really sorry about that, Suhail. Meanwhile, we have people in the audience, Keith, Della, Luke, and Suhail on Clubhouse, and we have several other people on the YouTube and Facebook pages. So to get to the YouTube page where you can actually ask your questions there, Suhail, I hope you will do it. I hope it's not too inconvenient. It's at bit.ly /SS-aphasia. And I hope we get your question there or something you'd like to say.
Yeah, I put it on my bio as well. So if you tap on my bio, it's just it's like the third line.
Okay, fantastic. Okay,
it's
very
not tappable though, but you can.
So we do want to answer questions and have a conversation, and we might do this after we actually finish the end of the broadcast. I don't know what kind of time Marcus and Evelyn have. How long more? You're not in a hurry to get to a party on this Saturday night, right?
Oh no, yeah. Drinking ends at 10:30 anyway. No, I'm kidding.
Well, you can head to the fridge. I just might do that soon. Pull out a can.
Why not?
Right. And we have a party here. So here we are. Let me do a room reset. Here we are at Sarani Sembang, the Sarani Sembang Club on Clubhouse, where we're having a room called A Conversation to Understand Aphasia. And it is being recorded. It is being simulcast on YouTube and Facebook. I'm doing this as an experiment for my Sarani Sembang Season 2 simulcast. And it's an experiment that I'm trying out. And I'm so happy that Evelyn and Marcus are with me today to actually experiment with this kind of thing. And I'm glad for the 4 people in the audience to listen in on us. It's wonderful. As well as various others. We've got 7 people on YouTube or Facebook watching us. I'm not sure whether it is the complete total number of people, but it's been wonderful. And so here we are talking about aphasia, which is a disorder caused by a brain injury where a person is unable to speak as well as before, or even understand as well as before. So it's both speech and reading that you say?
Yeah, so speech, writing, so spelling, writing could be affected, and it also can be understanding in terms of listening, comprehension, and reading, right? So there's four parts to it.
Right. Okay. Can I ask you?
Yes.
There has been 100% recovery?
Yeah, so there's some really famous people who have recovered so well, right? Emily Clark is quite the face of aphasia. Game of Thrones, Mother of Dragon. She suffered a brain aneurysm between season 1 and 2. Actually, she had 2 brain aneurysms and went for 2 to 3 operations. She was so young, 24 years old.
Oh my God.
So look it up, guys. Yeah, it's super interesting. Look it up. Just search Emily Clark, New Yorker. She gave an exclusive interview in 2019 and she shared her story. This is, I think, 5 years post. She feels ready to talk about it. Okay. Right. And she talked about aphasia. She talked about how aphasia affected her. She thought her life was gone. Right. As an actress, you have to remember lines.
Yes.
And she's like, she couldn't even say her name. Read it. It's a wonderful, insightful interview. Very intimate and very heartfelt. Right. She really thought her life was down the drains. But the good thing that
24, my God.
Yeah. Yeah. The good thing that came out of it is she started a brain injury foundation called Same You, which is based in the UK. And they do amazing work. Yeah. So very, very supportive. And they obviously, with the star power that she has, they can raise lots of funds and give grants and all that to brain injury survivors to get on with their lives. So that's Emily Clark, who recovered really well. research tells us that if you are able to recover, so regain your abilities, right?
Yep.
Usually within the first few months, then
Right.
it could be a full recovery.
Okay.
Though some people report that they still feel a little bit off, but to the average person out there, they will never really know that they have a condition called aphasia. But for, I would say, others
Yep.
with more severe stroke,
Yep.
they may never regain the communication ability or the speech, reading, listening ability.
But you never know, right? Until
you never know.
Yeah.
And also there's this thing about the neuroplasticity of our brain.
Yes. Yep.
I think it's so important that we continue to encourage the people around us who have brain conditions to never give up, to keep trying
Yes.
and trying, because
Yes.
even 10 years post,
Yes.
when you think about improvement, the improvement, so we don't just look at improvement in terms of, can you say this sentence fluently? Does it really matter at the end of the day? It's really just about communicating with your loved ones and the people around you, right?
Yep.
So if this person has a way of getting the message out, isn't that more
Yes.
important?
Yes.
And
Absolutely
with time, and with time, that definitely is something that can be achieved, right? It just takes patience. It takes maybe a good therapist, maybe a community like Aphasia Singapore.
Yep.
But we can all do it together, But I think it's when the person gives up and think, you know what, this is the end of the road for me. I'm just going to stay at home all day. I'm just going to depend on my family and not do
And wait to
anything.
die. And wait to
Yeah.
die. You
Yeah.
know, that's
So,
the saddest bit where they undergo depression. Because
Yeah.
I mean, I once I did my research on my mom's stroke situation, I realized that the first thing that is going to hit a stroke patient is depression.
Yeah.
And once depression hits, it's very difficult to get them back on track. So for me, the one of the ways of actually perhaps maybe getting her to deal with her depression is the ability for her to tell us how she felt. Because if you can't tell us how you feel, you're going to feel worse, right? So this whole treatment to aphasia to me was really, really important. Yeah.
So that's the thing, right? I mean, and we talk about this so much. It's ridiculous how, post-stroke. Okay, so research tells us that if you have aphasia, you are more at risk. You are up to like 93% more at risk than somebody with stroke without aphasia to suffer from post-stroke depression.
Right. Yes. Look at that. 93%.
And the thing is, if somebody has depression, you go to the doctor, they will tell you, okay, I'm going to refer you to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. And what happens? It's all talking therapy. And this person cannot really talk properly. What do you expect this person to do?
Yeah.
So you medicate them.
Yeah.
You medicate them,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, this is what happened. Like after my mom recovered from a craniectomy, the first appointment, one of the first appointments she had was with a psychiatrist, right? So when the psychiatrist actually asked my mom, "How are you feeling?" my mom went into this wanting to tell him how she felt, but she couldn't.
Yeah.
And then he said to her, "Okay, you're depressed. I'm going to give you stuff." So he gave her medication. Okay. 1 week later, I went back to the psychiatrist and said, "I don't want to give my mom the medication because it's really numbing her to a point where she's not responding to my wanting to rehab her."
Yeah.
So he said, "Actually, it's up to you. How you want to approach it, and it's very good if that's what you want to do." So thank you. I thank you for telling me this on my mom, and was able to achieve some sense of results. But before I go onto that, I want to go on to the comment board here because Suhail has sent in a comment or a question. Suhail says, with early stage dementia that is not stroke related, can aphasia be eased via practice in speech therapy, even if they are much older? So we're talking about dementia. It's not stroke related.
Okay.
Can aphasia, you got that right? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So how there is actually one type of, dementia is a umbrella term as well. There's many different types of dementia, right? Frontal temporal, and what we commonly know, Alzheimer's. Okay, so dementia and aphasia is quite different, but there is one type of aphasia called primary progressive aphasia that is a form of dementia. So I hope this is not confusing you, but there is one type of dementia called primary progressive aphasia, which starts off with language loss, and it is a form of dementia, right? And the treatment that we have for somebody with PPA, primary progressive aphasia, is actually markedly different from somebody who has a stroke who has aphasia, because the end goal, the goals that we set with the person and the goals that we set with the family would be quite different. It's not about rehabbing this person back to 100%, for example, but it's about really accommodating and knowing also the progression of the disease, because dementia is progressive. In a nutshell, okay, I don't know whether your mom has this kind of aphasia, may or may not be, but I would say seek help, seek intervention, right? A therapist will be able to help, because therapy is not just rehabilitation. Therapy is also about providing communication strategies for the family members as well as the person, so that, you know, we are helping the individual, the patient, as well as the loved ones around them, right, to be able to communicate better. That's our job, right? So I would say seek help, yeah, and see if the therapist that you find, try to find somebody who works in this area of acquired communication disorders. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Evelyn. Yeah, thanks, Suhail.
Yeah.
So what you are saying, Evelyn, is that dementia, by its very nature, will actually lead to the degeneration of the speech and language areas of the brain, and
May or may
therefore
May or may not. Yeah. So we do see some patients with dementia who are very fluent, talking very well, but having, so typically dementia, it's more characterized by memory loss and loss of function, like daily functioning, you know. So that is what we define dementia. And it's one of those disease by exclusion. You don't just diagnose this person by doing one cognitive test. There's lots of it. Like they actually go through a gamut of tests, blood tests and whatnot, right? Brain scans and whatnot to say, okay, this person, and based on the presentation, likely has aphasia. Likely has dementia, sorry. But when it comes to aphasia, we do have members in our community. Actually, I think there's one auntie who came in, no stroke, no brain injury, no traumatic brain injury, no brain tumor, but lost her language. So we know, because of, you know, how she presented, right? This is primary progressive aphasia. So she lost her language first, and she's then going to move on to lose her memory and whatnot. So the first thing that she lost in this presentation of dementia is her language.
Is that what goes first? Is the language like slurring?
So in primary progressive aphasia, what goes first is language. So it is a form of dementia. But in typical dementia, as we know it, Alzheimer's and whatnot, right? It's always the memory that goes first.
Okay.
Not language. Yeah, so they're able to speak very well. In fact, I have an older uncle, who has Alzheimer's dementia. He gets lost. So when he goes out of the house, he will wander, right? And you know, it's gotten to the stage where his family, his son has to put a name tag on him, and, you know, and he's not aware that he has dementia. Not so much. And he can't remember all our names and whatnot, but he's very fluent in his speech.
Right. Wow.
Right. Yeah. Very fluent in his speech, talking very well. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thanks for that. I hope, Suhail, that in a sense answered your question.
Yeah, I hope so.
Let us know on the comments page. So basically, we've got more people joining us. Silas, is this the Silas I know from Kuching? Hi, Silas. So here we are on Sarani Sembang talking about a conversation to understand aphasia. Just to let you know, Silas, I cannot invite you up on stage right now because this is a simulcast. And if you come up on stage, the simulcast going to YouTube and Facebook won't be able to pick you up. So what you can do, anybody who has any questions or want to send a message to us, you can go to the YouTube page where this is currently being transmitted. And you can go there by going to bit.ly/ss-aphasia. So Sarani Sembang ss-aphasia, and you will get to the YouTube page. Thanks for that, Suhail. I hope that was helpful in any way. And it's really interesting how language is going to be challenged by somebody who is getting older and facing dementia, and it's part of the challenges, I guess, of life that we need to be aware of. So thank you for bringing that up. Yes. So here we are. We are 1 hour 10 minutes into the session. Perhaps maybe we can go for another maybe 15 to 20 minutes, if that's okay with you guys. Yeah.
Sure. And then beer break. Yeah, I'm kidding.
And then beer break. Yeah. And then we'll switch off the stream, but carry on with the clubhouse so people can come up on stage. So if you want to sembang with us on Clubhouse, we will do that shortly. So while we are here doing the simulcast, if you have any questions, please go onto our YouTube page at bit.ly/ss-aphasia. You will find it on Marcus's bio, and you can type in your comments or your questions there. Okay, I want to ask Marcus, for instance, in terms of your work as a volunteer, and you don't come with a speech therapy background. Okay, so Marcus, what has it been like for you? I ask you this question purely because I want for perhaps maybe this session to encourage people to volunteer for a body like aphasia. So tell us, what has it been like? I mean, what has been the challenges? What has been the interesting discoveries and learnings and warm fuzzy things that has happened to you as a volunteer at Aphasia Singapore? Marcus, over to you.
All right. Well, there's quite some things. I think off the top of my head, I think this feeling of knowing that you are directly impacting someone's lives and you're helping them, that is definitely it's a sense of it's something you definitely benefit as a volunteer. You benefit from this
sense of fulfillment.
Yeah, sense of fulfillment, knowing that, because I think some people have mentioned Huai also has mentioned a couple of times. Huai is another speech therapist who is in the core team of Aphasia SG. He said how research has shown that if you help someone, actually the one who benefits more in some ways it's the one who is the helper more than the one being helped. Yeah, even while we can see in tangible ways the one being helped is helped in a specific area, to like whatever we have spoken about here, right? Like to be reminded that, hey, they can communicate, even if it takes that few more seconds. It's okay. They can be understood, even if it means the person they're talking to needs to gesture a bit more, needs to draw something, needs to show them pictures so that they can point out to that they need to repeat themselves or nod a bit more or shake or like go through a few trial and error to get like, okay, here's the answer. Right. So all these come together, and I think it's fulfilling. And even more so, I think seeing that this is something that really needs more awareness. This has brought me this sense of this is something I need to contribute to. It has a need, even if it's not me. It doesn't have to be me, but me coming into this already, I want to contribute and spread more awareness. Like when sometimes I think even in the little conversations I have with people, and I tell them, oh, why are you busy? Why are you doing this weekend? Oh, aphasia, I'm volunteering with aphasia. Then even if they ask me time and again, then I just tell them, okay, so aphasia is this and that. It's a language communication disorder. Actually, if I tell them more, then the moment it clicks and they forever remember, that's great. Next time someone asks them or they come across this word, they know what aphasia is.
Yep.
I think okay, not quite a parallel, but in a similar light, if we were to go back maybe 20 years ago, way fewer people would know about autism. But now you say autism, people at least have a rough idea, like, okay, this is something that affects a person's communication, among other things. Whereas aphasia, if you so far until now, if I mentioned aphasia to anyone who has not had a reason to know the word, whether through education, whether through someone they know personally who had it, wouldn't know what aphasia meant. Yeah. So continuously, I see people need to know more about this. Yeah, there's so much need for it to be known, so that people can be kinder in general in the community, in the wider, greater community out there, society, and also specifically for persons with aphasia and their caregivers, the whole community. Yeah, they really need this.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I think it's really, that whole thing about the person who's helping others stands to gain from a sense of fulfillment and from so many lessons of, how to navigate through life in terms of solving problems, being more empathetic, and discovering actually, the wonders of life when you connect with people on a deeper level, on a deeper level than just a superficial kind of like hi-bye kind of like situations. Because when you're helping, it really stems from a deeper connection, right? And I think that's something that anybody can benefit from. So on that note, yeah, Marcus, wonderful what you're doing. Great that somebody with an interest in language found your way into this situation. Evelyn, what else would be of interest to people wanting to volunteer? I mean, what other perhaps maybe you can do a little bit of a spiel about this organization that you founded 2 years ago, that is helping sufferers of aphasia to be able to find their sense of identity and being able to communicate their needs and wants to the people around them. What else would you pitch to potential volunteers?
Okay, so the big spiel right now is actually we're looking for interns and you get allowance, right? So we have a government grant where we give interns 800 Sing dollars a month. It's actually decent money, right? If you're an intern. The only caveat is you must be a youth. So you must be 35 and below.
Oh, damn. So
yes.
I thought I moved on to Singapore and joined the troop.
So you must be between 18 to 35. If you're interested, please hop on our Instagram or Facebook. So Aphasia Singapore, just look up Aphasia SG and you'll find us on social media, all the platforms. And you can email us your CV, but do it by tomorrow because the deadline is tomorrow. So that's we are looking for
11th July.
marketing intern. Marketing interns. So really, I think it's to do the outreach part of things. We generate a lot of original content. So how it's been all this while, right, is that the information about speech therapy, about aphasia, has been very Anglo-centric, very much coming from the Western world, which is great because they are really pushing it. They're really pushing it. And I had the good fortune to go to Aphasia Institute, which is the leading and the very first institute that studied aphasia. It's in Canada, and they've been around, I think, 42 years now. So I had the good fortune to go there and to learn, and basically receive training there. And I just thought like, oh, this cannot be that everything is just coming from the West, right? Even when we talk about language, it's always so monolingual in the West. So research, everything is just done in English. But look at us. We all speak different languages. Yes. We are trilingual, at least. Bilingual, trilingual. And does aphasia affect someone, who speaks Mandarin, who speaks Hokkien the same way it does, someone in English? We need to know all these. And how do we treat when the stimuli, the things that we're using, everything is in English. Even the apps that we're using, it's all in English, So a very... there was just this push. Like I just felt like, oh no, we have to do something in Asia. Yeah. So it's great. Like this whole cross-cultural, collaboration is great. And we're also trying to reach out to more Asian counterparts to support, especially now that it's online. We welcome anyone in the same time zone, I guess, for your own good. So we actually have like a participant right now from Philippines, same time zone, hopping into our call, somebody with aphasia, and that's great. We love it. Just join us. So if you are, if you want to volunteer, go to our social media, and you can sign up as a volunteer. Marcus, do you have the link? I put it on your bio as well. The Aphasia SG sign up link.
Sure.
Aphasia
so we
SG
actually
is
have-
the website.
Yeah, we
You
have
can
the
go
same
to-
link for both persons with aphasia / caregivers and volunteers. So it's a Google form where you can go in, you fill up, but you just tell us if you are a patient, a caregiver, or a volunteer, or or you want to volunteer. So volunteer, there's the frontline stuff, like you can facilitate groups, like what Marcus does. But Marcus does a lot more than that, lah. I mean, he advocates and he does a lot of back end things also. He's produced videos for us and all that. But we also need a lot of back end help in terms of, say, doing marketing, generating content, doing graphic design. So we need all sorts of volunteers. Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, I wish you well on that note.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, wonderful. So yeah, everybody, take a note out of that to volunteer, especially if you're in Singapore. In Malaysia, are you connected with anybody in Malaysia doing the same kind of work, by any chance?
So we do know, not me per se, but some of my teammates. I have a few teammates who used to be Malaysians, and we do know that there is a Malaysian Association of speech pathology.
We lost your speech.
Can you hear me?
Reason. Yeah, now we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. So we do know that there is a Malaysian Association of Speech Therapists, but we don't know who are the ones who specialize in aphasia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
if you know of anyone, link us up, please. Yeah.
I will be definitely. I will pimp Aphasia Singapore, because I think the work that you do is very important. I just want to read some comments that has come in. Maria Ho came in from Facebook saying there's an echo and echo can't hear properly. Sorry. Maria, I'm really sorry you can't hear. I hope the echo has disappeared and that it's kind of like, got better. None of us are monitoring the social media sound, so I'm really sorry. So we actually depend on people telling us how it's sounding. But we've got from Sheena Gubakash in KL. I know Sheena, a personal friend of mine and playwright. Hello, everyone. This is fascinating. So Sheena, a nice cheerio to you over there. Wonderful. Meanwhile, on Clubhouse, we've got Keith, who's still with us. Suhail, who's still with us. Thank you for your question earlier. And Anima has joined us. Thank you so much, Anima. So yeah, we're not having a huge number of people here, but the best thing about this particular session is that it won't disappear. It's going to be a podcast, a video podcast on Facebook as well as YouTube. So, all the information here can be shared by various people. Della has said, the echo is still there. You are still echoing, Vernon, but I can understand. Oh, I think I know what might be happening. Maybe it's okay, but actually I don't. But yeah, still echoing, but I can understand. Okay, thanks Sheena for that. And thanks Della. The echo is still there. So I presume Della is watching from YouTube. So I just need to figure out how to work this out. This is actually a test task in that Evelyn and Marcus have decided to go on this adventure with me to see if we can do a simulcast. We have 8 people watching us on the online video stream and 3 people here on Clubhouse. Thank you very much. Marcus is disappearing in and out of the video, but he'll be back. Okay, so is there any last words from anybody in Clubhouse, as well as watching us on the streaming video? Stella Wright is on Facebook saying hi, everyone. Hi, Stella. Okay, for those on Clubhouse who would like to get onto Facebook or YouTube, all you need to do, Anima, if there's something you'd like to say, just go on to bit.ly/ss-aphasia. That's how you send messages to us, as Stella just did. And Sheena and Della and Maria managed to send messages. So thank you very much, people who are watching. Not a big crowd, but very appreciative of your presence.
You can see the link on my bio as well if you tap on tap on my photo, you'll see it.
Yeah, and those on Clubhouse, Suhail, Keith, and Anima, do follow Marcus and Evelyn. Evelyn founded Aphasia Singapore, and Marcus is her bodyguard. providing providing various assistance to her to make sure Aphasia Singapore runs. So before we end this session, we are into 1 hour 24 minutes. Okay, so that in the next 6 minutes, perhaps we can round it up and then close the video streaming and then move into Clubhouse and sembang there. That's okay with you guys, yeah?
Yeah.
Sure.
So, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But then can I just intercept at this moment, because I couldn't help hearing that you have a playwright friend who is watching us live, and she said it's Sheena, right, who said it's fascinating. Can I just say this is a story that needs to be told? I've actually reached out to companies, local drama companies, to see if they want to pick up on the story. A New York-based speech therapist actually wrote a play about aphasia. I just think the story of aphasia is just something that cannot be adequately put when you sometimes, as a speech therapist, because we tend to be very clinical, we come up with research and stats and all that. But really, I think the most compelling stories are the human stories, right? And we are just conveyors. We are just trying our best to convey the stories that our patients tell us, that the members of our community tell us. And the richness of the story, I cannot even begin to tell you. I mean, I just feel like it will be a wonderful movie, a wonderful play. Pick it up, and then write a story about it, and then make a play about it.
Well, Sheena has said yes. Please let's set something on. So
Yes.
Sheena, I will send you Evelyn's contact details and Marcus's
Yes.
contact details, or you can basically what's the word for it? I will do that. Don't worry, I will connect
Link
you.
up, yeah.
I'm a multi-mediator, so I can do that. That's one of my service offerings. No worries. Fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah.
Brilliant. Sheena actually wrote a play, which I was supposed to have been in, but it had to be cancelled because of the lockdowns we're having here. Okay, and then Sohail now has gone on to YouTube because he left us from Clubhouse, or he's come back.
Back on Clubhouse now.
Yeah. Okay. He sent us a comment. Thank you, Sohail, for accommodating us. Yeah. Sohail's comment on YouTube was, "When language fails, can visual language then pick up to help?" When language fails, can visual language then pick up? Apparently, I can show this on the screen. Oh, there you go. Well, I'm discovering new things here.
So I'm going to rephrase this. So I think, am I right to say what you mean is when words fail? So when language as we know it, meaning script, meaning words, when it fails, then can we use visuals? Yes. And if you just attend one of our chit chat online session, you will see we use so many pictures. A lot of the conversations are really in the visual format. So visuals can be, for example, I'm talking, but I say, have you had your lunch? Right? So that's a visual representation of eating, right? Do you want a drink? So that's just a very simple visual representation, but also using pictures, right? So just using pictures. And nowadays with our smartphones, it's so easy to just pull out a picture anytime. When you say something, if the person if you see that they're looking a little bit lost, they don't quite comprehend, you can always back it up with a visual representation. So just pulling out pictures on Google, and say, or, so for me, I always have paper and pen with me so that I can draw, I can keyword, I can write. Those are just really some strategies that we use. And Marcus is really good at it, right? I mean, you don't even need to be clinically trained to know all these things. It may seem very common sense, but it's not so commonsensical at all because people don't use it enough.
We got to be very intentional.
Yeah.
And we got to remind ourselves, I have this tool in my box. Okay, let me pick up this trick up my sleeve.
Exactly that. So think of it as a toolbox, and your toolbox comprises a lot of visual tools, right? The visual tools are, as I mentioned, gestures, right? And your body language, right? Even if words fail, they can read your body language very well. If you are sounding impatient, if you're looking impatient, they will know you are impatient, right? Is that what you want to convey? Maybe the intention is not such, but the body language is showing. And then there's negative vibes. So we say strive for positive vibes in a conversation, You just want to leave this person with a happy feeling, right? At the end of the day. Yeah. And
that's really interesting. That's so interesting because when I was working with my mom, right? And it was always at the back of my mind that whatever I was doing for her should not stress her out. So like if I was like frustrated with something I was doing for her, when I felt frustrated, I knew it was showing. I made it a point to let her know that I can deal with this. Don't worry, because you can imagine like if you were in that situation and you feel that you are giving people trouble, you will feel more depressed. So I think that whole communicating with positivity and ensuring that the other person who has the aphasia looks at your own struggle or challenge with the condition in the best way possible. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that they don't feel like as though they're a burden.
Yeah.
They feel like maybe they're giving you a challenge to become brighter and smarter and discover your superhero powers. That's what I used to tell my mom. I said, you're helping me actually develop new skills. I think it's So hell, I don't know whether that helped in any way. But okay. Yes. We've come to the end of the program because I did say we will finish at 1 hour, 1.5 hours, and we're there. We have 9 thumbs ups and hearts from the social media streaming. We have 5 people currently on the online video. We have 5 people on Clubhouse. Now we have 4 people on the streaming. So we have to say goodbye to the 4 people on streaming because we're going to close down the video streaming. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for listening in.
And Della just said thank you all. Thanks, Della, for jumping back and forth to let us know what it was like on the streaming video. We're going to move on to Clubhouse. So if you haven't got Clubhouse, download it and look for us and join us. We're probably going to be there for another half hour to an hour, drinking our beers and having a little bit of a wind down, I guess, with the rest of our listeners there. So so on that note, any last words, Marcus?
I think so. Talking about the like Eve mentioned the internship opportunity, and then to find out more about Aphasia SG. So one thing is go to aphasia.sg. Another thing is on Clubhouse, whether you're watching through the stream or you're already in the app, right? Go and join or follow the Aphasia SG Club. And from there, you can also see our calendar of events this month. So if you are currently in Clubhouse, or if you want to get onto Clubhouse, you can go to my bio or Evelyn's bio, and then tap on the first club you see at the bottom left. Okay. And thank you so much, Vernon, for this whole conversation. It's been so fun and most exciting. A great opportunity, really relevant.
Evelyn, any last words?
Well, it's the first time I've done a simulcast on Clubhouse, and I'm new to Clubhouse, by the way. This is fun. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share about aphasia. It's a cause that's very passionate, that we're very passionate about and very close to our hearts. But I think the take-home message that we want to leave for everyone is just be patient when you meet somebody who communicates differently, who might seem like they need a bit more time. Just be patient. Give them an extra 10 seconds. Don't jump the gun and just assume that they are like you and me. Maybe not.
Time, right?
Yeah, really invisible.
Give others time.
Yeah.
Time is precious, and you can be very generous of heart if you give people time. I think that's really important. Stella Wright says, welcome, Vernon. Thank you so much. And Della, thank you again. So we're moving on to Clubhouse, right? And on that note, I'm going to end the broadcast. If you like what you're seeing here, please subscribe to Sarani Sembang on YouTube. Because we'll be having more sessions. And also, Evelyn, because we are on an international platform, maybe other people interested in setting up aphasia initiatives and where they live, could perhaps maybe connect with you. To get some tips and
Drop me an email. Drop me an email at evelyn@aphasia.sg. So it's EVELYN @aphasia.sg. Drop me a note. I will respond.
Okay, and we'll put all the details on the YouTube page as well, so that people can find Evelyn as well as Marcus. Okay, on that note, thank you all Thank you. All come on to Clubhouse right now to join us. I'm going to go out with, if I can find it, our montage. Okay, Evelyn, I'll see you in Clubhouse. Marcus, I'll see you guys there. Okay, thanks a lot, and I'll see you in Clubhouse. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.